So Susan Bevelock was not here right now, but she's our Interact chair with the teens from the community, ages 12 to 18. We sponsor that Interact club. Susan works with Vin Spoto, who is here, so I'll thank you in person. Both Susan and Vin opened the doors on Sunday, the 24th of January, to allow kids from 3 different towns to come into their shop and worked on a project. This is one of several projects these kids are doing. They helped us earlier in the year with Choices Changes in Chocolate, where they defined a need to remove barriers to communication and support in Wellesley. And a couple of projects have spun off of that. The third Tuesday meeting of this month, Purple Table will come into town, and some of the new members of the club are helping restaurants decide whether or not to take the training and open their doors as Purple Table host, which make it easier for folks with disabilities, including mental disabilities, to enjoy a night out. Other projects are doing a pool tournament over at Tullis Parsons Center to do some intergenerational conversation. And they're also trying to build the world's largest paper airplane to break the Guinness World Record. And part of that is to normalize this conversation about mental health and wellness. So there's a video clip in here I'm going to throw up. Again, this is from Pinnacle Residential Properties a few weeks ago. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Project SOAR is a chance for us to pilot a project that will share information about peer leadership and depression prevention with a much wider audience.
Seems like such a cool project. One, you get to break a world record, which is pretty cool in itself. But just getting that message out there, seeing a giant paper airplane, like that in itself is cool. I love aerodynamics, I love paper. It's just 2 pretty cool things added together. You get to work with so many different people, you get to make new friends along with that. I like to be able to see that we can get our message out there to the world inside of a book, which not people will do anymore, but it will be online. And I think that's going to be such a good reach for us.
I'm really passionate about giving kids, and especially women, a voice, and not being afraid to speak your own ideas and be confident in inventing, being creative, and changing the world based on what your passions are.
Something that I really care for is other people's mental health, because I feel like people don't like to express how they're feeling, and they just keep things bottled inside themselves, and I feel like it's okay to talk to someone, and people really need a voice.
The main reasons why we want to be involved in Project SOAR is because the focus of the Wellesley Interact group is mental wellness. So to be involved in Project SOAR is a big deal, and it's a great way to get the message about mental wellness out there.
I want to be involved with Project SOAR because it'll spread the word about Interact and the Break Free from Depression curriculum. And it'll also show people that when people from different communities come together, really big things can be done. So we're aiming to break the world record for largest paper airplane to take flight.
Project SOAR!
Let's break a world record!
So I was there, I had fun with that. And those kids are coming here to present on the 6th. So our speakers for the first Tuesday meeting in March, on March 6th at Rotary, are the Wellesley Interact kids, and also RILA, which is a Rotary Youth Leadership Award. So Fred Wright will have some of the kids that have worked on that in the past and are invited to attend the training this year. So I hope our guests, as well as our members, are here for March 6th, which is the first Tuesday meeting. So there's two other announcements. I would like to give Tori a few minutes to talk about every Rotarian every year.
Just briefly, we're winding down on our campaign for the Every Rotarian Every Year, and the first wave of donations have been sent to the Rotary Foundation, so we thank you for that. We're about halfway on our goal of $7,000, so I urge you, if you've made a commitment or if you'd like to make a commitment, to get a check to me payable to the Rotary Foundation, and I will make sure that we will use the matching funds as long as they last, and we'll send it, and you will get credit towards your Paul Harris Fellow. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tori. Paul, did you want to talk about Taste of Wellesley?
Yes. First of all, we have a committee meeting this coming Sunday, and quite a few here on the committee. The good news is, and I think most people know, we're having a Wellesley Society of Artists donating some paintings, some of their art for auction, silent auction. Right now we have 10 artists that have committed to donate some artwork, which I think is pretty good. And one artist has agreed to set it all up for us. She does that on bank all the time. So I think this is going to be a new addition to Taste of Wellesley. We're going to have an open bar, not an open bar, we're going to have a cash bar this year. We're going to have 2 tents, so it's going to be, the venue is going to be considerably larger than last year. We have Smith and Walensky, the new restaurant that's coming in town, has committed to be at the Taste of Wellesley. So far, our sponsors are coming along pretty well. I believe we got a Wellesley Bank, Brookline Bank, each at the $2,500 level, and I think we're looking at, I've spoken to Century Bank and I said they're going to do something, and I think John is speaking to Eastern Bank, and you're going to try to get, what, $10,000?
2,500.
Okay. Okay. So everything seems to be going along pretty well. So everything seems to be on schedule, and any ideas from anyone or any kind of support will be appreciated. Even if you're not on a committee, you want to come to a committee meeting and give us some ideas, it'd be appreciated. Our committee meetings are usually at Ben's office on Sunday night at 6 o'clock, and we have one this coming Sunday. We'll probably have one maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that. But, if you want to be aware of what's going on, just email me and I'll add you to the list.
It's going to be at Elm Bank again, presumably this year.
Same thing, yeah. We're going to have 2 tents, Michael, and we're expecting a lot more people.
And
Last year, we sold I think 390 tickets, but then we gave some with some of the sponsorship. So I suspect that last year we had 400 attendants. And this year, we hope our goal is 600, but if we get 500, I think we'll all be very happy.
What's the date again?
I think it's May 3rd. It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday night, is it?
It's the first Thursday night in May.
The first Thursday night in May, yeah.
That's a Thursday.
Yeah.
May 3rd.
And we haven't printed out the tickets yet. I don't know when. I forget who's in charge of the tickets.
Carol is. Carol.
Okay, that's good. So hopefully we'll have them pretty soon, but we're going to be asking everybody to go on and sell tickets, and we probably should have a prize for anyone who can beat Frank Wilbottom as far as tickets are. So,
No one wants to talk to me anymore.
Go the other way, right?
So that's the end of announcements for the Rotary Club of Wellesley that I know about. If you have an announcement.
The only thing
Now's
I'd
your
like
chance.
to say, just for our guests, so that they know, we do not have a pot of money where we can distribute money. We have a CD at the bank, but that's our kind of our stash that we keep. So in order for us to raise money so we can give money to the Home for New England Veterans, etc., we have to do a big fundraiser. And our big fundraiser is the Taste of Wellesley. And Paul Simard came up with this idea, and it was a real success last year. And so I'm so proud of Paul and what he did for pushing this.
everybody was involved.
Because we used to do a pancake festival in Wellesley, but the Little Leaguers used to sell our tickets, but they told us they wouldn't sell them anymore. So you can imagine people like me in their 70s going door to door selling tickets. So instead we switched to, with Paul's suggestion, we switched to the Taste of Wellesley. And that gave us like $23,000 that we could give away for a year. But every year we have to do that. Otherwise, we don't have money to give. So,
And it's the same with all Rotary clubs. It's not unique to our club.
but some clubs are endowed.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think Kiwanis and Wellesley has an endowment because they give a fair amount of money and they have no members.
Right.
So how are they doing it?
That's fair.
You understand this is on video, right?
Frank, you reminded me of something, what you just said. I happen to be friendly with the president of the new Lions Club in Wellesley, and they've asked me, and I talked to Bob about this, they want to attend our next meeting. I think they have 9 or 10 members. They want to attend our next meeting, and I want to see how everybody feels about that. And they said, maybe we should do a project together. Honestly, I'm not a big proponent of doing projects with somebody else because, you know, you have 2 clubs, you double the income, you split it in half, you come out to the same place. I'm not too sure where the benefits are. But I think that, you know, at the risk of losing goodwill in the community, we have to keep the pancake breakfast going. So maybe the pancake breakfast would be a good thing to do with the Lions Club.
So the
both lose money.
the pancake breakfast,
both lose money.
Well, the thing is, no, we'll change the whole format. We don't do things.
So Paul, are they looking for a service project or a fundraising project? Because we have lots of service projects.
Well, we can, they're the ones who thought of a fundraising project, but I guess they'd be open to a service project.
The next meeting is that purple table
Yes.
presentation.
So it's not a good time?
I was going to say it's a great time.
It's a great time?
Yeah.
Okay, so
they
should
can hear what we're up to.
should I
and-
invite
and
them?
if they want, please.
Sure. Okay, and
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, what do you think about having them join us in a, you know, one of the big problems we have with the pancake breakfast now is Little League doesn't want to sell tickets. We need people to sell tickets.
so the Key Club, the high school Key Club is doing the Pancake Festival now
Oh, they are.
on the World of, yes.
So we're not involved anymore?
No.
They did it with mail order pancakes. That's the only difference. All the pancakes were shipped in instead of grilled right then. So
then
I went,
festival
and it was different.
It was different.
Because, you know, a reheated pancake's not the same as one that's just made on the spot.
Well, maybe we compete with them.
I think we're out of the pancake. The
So,
margin was
Turn them
terrible.
into a service meeting and let's let ideas pop.
Okay.
Okay?
I still like the idea of competing with them.
No, I think we should have them come to the next meeting.
Yeah, okay, they'll be here at the next meeting.
Excellent. Thank you. Outside of this club, the Native Club is addressing the opioid crisis. So if anyone's interested, this Saturday night, they're at the Natick Community Senior Center. That's on Central Avenue on Saturday, 6 to 9 p.m. So if you're interested to stop by, please do. And with that, John, would you introduce our speaker for the evening?
Yes, so we used to do a fair amount of, in this Pancake Festival, we used to give tickets away to the Barton Road complex, which is run by the Wellesley Housing Association, or Wellesley Housing Authority, I guess. And I don't know, Paul, you'll probably go through the details of bankruptcy and all the other things that went on with it.
Sure.
But Paul Rudd is the executive director of the Needham Housing Authority. He's part of the Needham Rotary Club. And recently, Needham Housing Authority assumed control of the Wellesley Housing Authority. So Paul's going to speak to us about that. Paul is also on the District Charity Fund trustee, of which I'm the chairman of that, which is a 501(c) fund that Rotary clubs can take advantage of if they take donations. You can give it to the District Charity Fund and get a tax donation for doing it. So he's a trustee along with me on that. So Paul?
It's really good to be here. I'm going to give a brief overview of the Wellesley Housing Authority, public housing in general, and then answer any questions that you have on, things that I do or things that you might be interested in. It's a big topic in Wellesley right now, as it is in most very affluent towns. There's a lot of talk about affordable housing, And people say, we need more affordable housing. We got to get to the, the 10%, level of affordable housing. And I get asked all the time, gee, doesn't the housing authority count toward affordable housing? And I have to say, no, it doesn't, because we are not affordable housing. We are actually public housing, and there is a difference there. Okay, affordable housing is reserved for folks that make up to 60% of the area median income. Okay, in a town like Wellesley, I believe, and I think my statistics are about a year old, Wellesley is the second most affluent community in the state of Massachusetts. I think the median income in the town of Wellesley is about $180,000. So 60% of that would be $108,000. So in order for someone to buy an affordable housing in Wellesley or to rent an apartment in Wellesley on an affordable basis, you would need to make up to $108,000. In the public housing realm, however, we deal with people that literally have nothing. They have no money, they have no assets. They are literally one step away from being homeless. That's who we deal with. I get a lot of satisfaction out of what I do. It's not, it isn't a very sexy industry to be in, to be honest with you. It isn't, it isn't like national defense where, you can see an aircraft carrier being built, or it's not talked about all the time like, Medicare and Social Security. We don't have, a bevy of lobbyists all over the place advocating for folks that make $600 a month. We just don't have a lot of that. So we try to make do with what we have. On the state level, we've been level funded. Our subsidy has been level funded for the past 7 years. So we have not received an increase. Up until this past year, we viewed level funding as being a loss for us, because we had actually asked for more, and they said, no, you're going to be level funded. This year, however, it was a win for us to be level funded, because we asked for what we've always gotten, and they wanted to cut us back. So when they finally went through their sausage making in the House and the Senate, and they came out with a bill, we actually got level funded at the same level as we had the past 7 years. But make no mistake about it, and it doesn't matter what your politics are. We've experienced the same kind of struggles under Charlie Baker as we did under Deval Patrick. They just don't want to fund public housing the way it should be funded. I understand there's a lot of of competing interests, constituencies, and whatnot. And again, these people don't have anything, so we as an industry can't afford lobbyists up there, but we do the best we can through the Mass Narrow Association. Right now, I don't have to tell probably people in this room the climate down in Washington is even worse than it is in the States. The initial budget that went up to Capitol Hill from the Trump administration called for a 13% cut to HUD, which would be devastating for the poor, absolutely devastating. Public housing nationwide has a backlog maintenance of approximately $7 billion. That's maintenance that should be undertaken, but because we don't have the funding to do so, we can't do it. And then he appoints Ben Carson, his HUD secretary, who's a gentleman that has no experience in housing. He said that he did live in public housing, when he was younger, so that makes him qualified to be HUD secretary. That's like saying that, you know, I'm qualified to be transportation secretary because I drive a car. Okay,
Then the T before having it.
right. So, you know, I have very strong feelings on that subject, and I tend to get fired up. So I'll shift to a new area now. The Wellesley Housing Authority, as John mentioned, has been in existence since 1948. Right after World War II, they constructed apartments down on Barton Road for returning veterans, and it grew from there. In the early 2000s, the Housing Authority ran into some financial difficulties, and so much so that it was a borderline receivership situation. Now, in the public realm, they don't let public entities go under. They simply either bail them out or they make other, you know, some other kinds of arrangements. In our case, they asked the Needham Housing Authority to come in and kind of oversee the Wellesley Housing Authority. So the Needham Housing Authority, you know, it's not a merger. We don't own the Wellesley Housing Authority, but we oversee it. That was 2003. We've been overseeing it ever since, and it's worked out pretty well. I was hired as the assistant director back in 2015. It'll be three years next month, and then my former executive director left for a job on the Cape back in 2016, and the Needham board hired me as the new executive director. So I now have oversight, you know, responsibilities here in Wellesley. How I got into public housing, when you ask a third or a fourth grader what they want to do when they grow up, the hands go, you know, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a president, I want to be Tom Brady. You know, nobody says, I want to work in the public housing industry. No one says that. So a lot of us get into the industry by accident. I'm no different. I was in the manufacturing business, and I owned a three-family down in Providence, Rhode Island. I joined the apartment association down there. I, you know, sort of networked around with folks that were in the industry. I got on my own housing authority board back where I live. And that sort of led to me, you know, getting approached by various companies to work in there, you know, for them, and that's where it, you know, sort of took off for me. I got into the industry back in 2001. The Wellesley Housing Authority has 235 apartments spread throughout the town. Of those 235 apartments, 100 of them are family units. So that's, you know, those are units in which there's families, you know, usually with, you know, young children. I would say that the breakdown, it's primarily, if I had to ballpark it, I would say it's probably 85% single moms and kids. The remaining 135 units are reserved for the elderly and the handicapped. Right now we have developments on Barton Road and Linden Street. Those are our two family developments. Our senior developments are on Weston Road, River Street, Morton Circle, and Washington Street. You know, again, we have 235 total units. In addition to that, we have a very small housing choice voucher component. We have 15 housing choice vouchers, and essentially what that does is that allows an individual who obtains a voucher to be able to live anywhere and pay 30% of your income towards rent anywhere in the Commonwealth. Because the rents in Wellesley obviously are very high, we only have one individual of the 15 that actually has the voucher in Wellesley. The other 14 live elsewhere. we deal with a lot of issues. We're facing, what I like to call Mission 1 and Mission 2. Our board chairman over in Needham has sort of coined that phrase, Mission 1 and Mission 2. Mission 1 is we try to be a good landlord. We try to be a good day-to-day manager of our assets. That includes, leasing apartments, that includes the maintenance area, that includes, resident services, and so forth. So, that's Mission 1. Mission 2 is having the recognition that due to our lack of funding, the infrastructure that we have is not going to last forever. So we need to think up of ways, we need to develop ways to make our assets last. And usually that involves modernization, it involves redevelopment. So we are kind of thinking along those lines. We are in the very, very early stages of talking about, possible redevelopment of, several of our assets. And that is a long drawn out process. It's not going to happen overnight, but we've at least, started the conversation on that, which I'm very glad to see. We, are faced with a, we're like a little microcosm of what you read in the news. We have senior citizens who live in our apartments who do not have any family anyplace. They're by themselves. We have dementia issues amongst these seniors. We have opioid abuse. Back in 2017, we lost 3 residents to overdoses. We have child abuse. We have child neglect. We have animal abuse. There's a lot of problems that we face on a daily basis. However, we also have some very, very good people that live in our units. And what we also try to do is empower these people to think beyond public housing, especially with the families. I always tell people when I talk to them that they shouldn't think of public housing as a destination. They should think of it as a stepping stone. We're assisting you now when you're down on your luck for whatever reason. Maybe you made a bad decision in your life. Maybe you had a substance abuse issue at one time. Maybe you lost everything. You got divorced. Whatever the case may be, you find yourself in public housing. We're here to help you. But my goal is to, not help you for the next 40 years, and I don't want to help your kids and your grandkids either, live here in public housing. I want to empower you so you can lift yourself up and move out. And again, sometimes that's met encouragingly from folks, and sometimes, they tell me where to go. But that's just the nature that's just the nature of the business. We are governed, the housing authority itself. I'm the executive director. I have an assistant director, and I have a staff of 7 people, 4 maintenance individuals and 3 admin people. The housing authority itself is governed by a 5-person board. Okay, Michael was on the board for a number of years before I came here. 4 of those individuals are elected by the people of Wellesley. On a rotating basis, and there is one that is a state appointee. So we have right now on the board. You probably know the names. We've got Maura Renzella. She's our board chair. Don Kelly is our vice chair. Michelle Chalmers from the world of Wellesley is on our board. Tanya Morell is our resident board member. She's a resident of Barton Road. And then we have Kathy Egan, who is the state appointee. So she's still on there. I report to them on a monthly basis. I run the day-to-day, and I report to the board once a month. I give them financial updates, answer any questions they might have. I'm involved with the state as far as obtaining what's called formula funding monies to improve our properties. So I'm involved with all that. The Wellesley Rotary Club actually has done a lot of good for the Housing Authority. I know you folks sponsor an after-school program down on Barton Road, I believe 1 day a week. It's going over very, very well, and it's very well received. We also reach out to a number of local agencies. Babson College does a day for their after-school program. The Wellesley, I don't want to get the name wrong, I think it's the Wellesley Service League. They take a day. The school teachers also take a day from the middle school. So there's a lot of really good things happening, in the Housing Authority. My only wish is that we were funded a little better so we could improve the infrastructure. But like I said, we're in the midst of addressing those issues now. Since I've been here, I've tried to get acclimated to both towns, actually. Like John said, I joined the Needham Rotary about a year ago. Actually, what I might start doing is I may start rotating. Go there, come here, go there, come here, just to keep my my ears to the ground, so to speak, in both towns. But what I've noticed about both communities, but especially Wellesley, is it's a very affluent town, but it's a very, very giving town. You have a lot of really good people in Wellesley, and I've reached out to a host of agencies and a host of organizations, and everybody is very, very willing to help, and they understand the challenges that we face. And getting back to the residents for a moment, they pay 30% of their monthly income towards rent. So, as an example, for a senior citizen, who's making $600 a month in Social Security benefits, he or she will pay $180 towards rent. Now, if you're a family, and as an example, you're on Barton Road and you're paying, say $180 a month for rent, you also have the benefit of attending one of the world-class school systems in the state of Massachusetts. And a lot of these kids, they play their cards right, and they do well, and a lot of them are. A lot of them are going on to college, which is fantastic to see. It really is. They get the benefits of a world-class education, because as far as I'm concerned, the public schools in Wellesley are better than any private school out there. I think that the moms and the dads recognize that, and they really push their kids to do better, so they can go on and they can be successful in life. So let's see if I have anything else. Does anybody have any questions at all?
How do you determine how many units is needed in the town?
It's a 10% threshold. So in other words, out of all the housing stock in Wellesley, 10% of it has to be affordable. So what that means is 10% of all the homes in Wellesley, or all the dwellings in Wellesley.
But that's affordable.
Right.
Public housing number.
What's a public housing number?
How is that?
How is that determined?
Well, you would take the total number of units, and we're sort of landlocked right now because all of our developments, there's really no way to expand. So they're not building any more public housing. Here in Wellesley, by the way, something that I failed to mention. We are 100%. Our subsidies come 100% from the state of Massachusetts. There's no HUD monies in Wellesley, so there's no federal units here in Wellesley. It's all state units. For some reason, the feds tend to fund their housing stock better than the state does. So right now, we're 100% state funded, which is a little unusual. Normally, there's a little bit of federal involved in other housing authorities, but yes.
Yeah, kind of to expand on Vince's question, you have 235 units in Wellesley.
Right.
These are owned by the housing authority?
By the Wellesley Housing Authority, correct.
And if you had a lot more money, you'd want to build, and it was land you'd want to build more. I guess his question was,
Yeah.
how many units do you need? How many units would you build?
Oh, well, our waiting list is hundreds of people long. So the need is just, incredible.
When these people are on the waiting list, where are they? What are they doing?
Where are they?
Yeah, what are the people on the waiting list? Where do they live right now?
Some are homeless, some live, with families, some live in a very unaffordable situation where they're just, they're a layoff away from losing everything. Could be any number of factors.
Does every Western, Metro West community have public housing? Does, Needham, I guess, has it.
Weston does not.
There's no public, and I don't think they have any affordable housing either, do they?
No, Weston does not, Dover does not, Sherborne does not, Natick does, Needham does, Brookline does,
Okay.
Waltham does, Newton does. So it's all, some of the very, very small towns don't.
Yeah.
But, as far as how different communities are going about, getting to that 10% affordable, they have different strategies. If you've driven down 128 heading south, right after the Highland Avenue exit, if you look to the right, you will see this monstrosity of an apartment complex going up. That is how Needham has achieved their 10%. I don't know what they did, but that big development right there is going to be like 400 apartments plus some condos and everything in there. So that's how Needham achieved.
That's all affordable?
Not all of it.
Okay.
It's going to be a mixed use that they call it.
I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused.
Okay.
Between affordable and public,
Okay.
does the combined 10%, is that what's needed? In other words,
Yes.
So if you had 10% of all affordable in town, you wouldn't necessarily have to have public.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. So
Yeah, but I mean, the public housing will always be there. Part of any redevelopment that that we undertake, for example, if we redevelop Barton Road, for example, okay, those 88 units would absolutely remain in the public realm. Okay, once they're public housing, you can't change that. They have to be maintained. What you do with the other units, that's up for discussion.
you're saying right now Wellesley's not at the 10%.
Wellesley right now is about 6%. So we're getting there, but we still have a little bit of ways to go. Yes.
Since you're really the executive director of the Needham also, can you
Right.
talk about how many units they have and how many are for families versus elderly?
Sure. Needham is 296 units, so it's a little bigger, although roughly the same size. Of that 296, 40, 36, and 60. Yeah. Quick.
Yeah.
40 and 36 is 76, plus 60 is 136. So we have 136 federal units, and the balance are state units. Of that, 40 and 60, we have 100 units that are family. So 100 units are family, and 196 are the elderly.
And how did Needham get federal units,
They've always had them.
even though Wellesley doesn't have any?
Correct.
What's that all about?
This all happened well before I got there. It depends on the charter. It depends on how they were funded originally.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into that. Wellesley was just always a state-funded, housing authority. So, yes.
You mentioned that they shouldn't look at this as a long-term home, but they should be thinking about getting out of.
Well, that's my opinion.
are there any incentives to get them to move on and do better, or are they essentially they can stay there for life without any pressure? Or
We have a handful of folks where it's a generational thing, and that's your right.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, we can't force people to move. We would never do that. We can educate folks as to how to improve themselves, and we can give them the tools to succeed. But ultimately, it has to, you have to have the fire to do it, and some people do.
what percent moves on?
Last year, well, it's kind of tough to. It's if you want to split it up. In our family developments, I believe we had approximately 16 folks leave us. Some moved on to bigger and better things. Some relocated out of town. Others didn't pay their rent for several months, and we had to evict them. That does happen. There's still rules to follow. If your rent is a couple $100s a month and you owe us $800, then it means you haven't paid your rent in 4 months. And in the private sector, if you don't pay your rent in 4 months, you'll have to make a court appearance and go through the process. So it's the same. It's the same thing. So there are rules to follow. There are rules and regulations. We try to give everybody the tools to succeed. Whether they want to accept it or not is up to them.
Thank you.
But I think we do a great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please.
Yes.
So how do you determine the amount of families versus elderly, or is it just who signs up?
It all depends on the development itself. So for example, Barton Road, is families. Morton Circle and Washington Street, they're the elderly. So it all depends. I mean, you're on a different waiting list. There's a family list and there's an elderly list.
Okay.
So you're just on the list depending on your circumstance. And
I have a last question. We've
Sure.
actually got a project that we've been talking about earlier, Purple Tables.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is communicating with the restaurant providers to see if they're interested in training to take in children who have social anxieties or adults who have dementia. There's a training element on their part for their staff, but there's also a challenge we have then in making that resource known to the community. Some of your folks have dementia, they have Alzheimer's, they have other challenges.
correct.
How do you communicate a resource that's available to your population?
We have a very strong relationship with the Council on Aging, and we are very fortunate that their staff really assist us to a huge degree. We are not, we're not licensed social workers. We're not psychologists. We're essentially property managers.
Right.
Who have to deal with a lot of the issues of society. So we rely to a huge degree on them to assist us with these folks.
But how about some of the other maladies, like younger people who are living independently, but are challenged?
Right.
They may be too young to be known to the Council on Aging.
Right. Well, in that case, we have somebody at the Board of Health that is very helpful to us as well, and they sort of take on a caseload which is age dependent. Anybody under 60 goes to the Board of Health because it usually involves something the Board of Health can handle. Anybody over 60 will be referred to the Council on Aging.
Perfect. Paul, thank you so very much.
Anytime.
Ben, would you bring us out?
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.
So the next meeting is 2 weeks.